2022, please come to order. Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Carr?
Here.
Director Garcia?
Present.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Here.
Director Herndon?
Present.
Director Leonard?
Present.
Director O'Halloran?
Present.
Director Simpson?
Present.
Vice President Taylor?
Physically in attendance.
President Peterson?
Present.
We have 9 present.
The chair will now ask the secretary to lead us in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. The chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the recitation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'll give our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Milwaukee lies on traditional Menominee, Potawatomi, and Ho-Chunk homeland along the southwest shores of Lake Michigan, part of North America's largest system of freshwater lakes. On this site, the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Connecticut rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's Menominee, Ojibwe, Ho-Chunk, Oneida, and Mohican sovereign nations remain present to this day. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Gracias. Pursuant to Board Rule 1.06, this meeting is being conducted virtually. Board members may be participating in person from Central Office Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we move to our agenda, the chair will ask that we share in a moment of silence to commemorate the passing of the following members of the MPS community. Ann Baker, a retired teacher from Thoreau School. Mary Bell, a retired food service assistant from Golda Meir School. Tamaro Broomfield, an 8th grade student at 53rd Street School. Alexis Calles, a K-3 student from Forest Home Avenue School. Camino Kami Funches, a 21 transition graduate. Eric Gonzalez, an 11th grade Reagan High School student. Dashelle Hampton, a 9th grade Riverside High School student. Mohammed Arman Rashidullah, a 5th grade Zablaki school student. M. Joan Saffer, a retired substitute teacher. Rose Waldman, a retired clerical staff member. Richard Warnke, a retired groundskeeper. Please have a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now move on to the items of business on our agenda. As is customary, no public testimony is taken at board meetings. For our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the meetings, agenda, and minutes page on the MPS website and choosing online agendas. Now, let us begin. Madam Secretary, what is our first item of business?
The first item of business on tonight's agenda is the awards and commendations, the Excellence in Education Award.
Each month, the Board of School Directors recognizes an outstanding school, student, staff member, parent, or community member for a display of excellence, achievement, or innovation that may serve as an example to our schools and our entire community. This month, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors is proud to present the Excellence in Education Award to County Executive David Crowley, Mayor Cavalier Johnson, County Supervisor Marcelia Nicholson, Common Council President Jose Perez, and Chief of Police Jeffrey Norman. Could I have, well, everybody's on the stage. Each of these leaders hold a sitting position representing the great city or county of Milwaukee. These influential leaders are at the forefront of our great city and the anticipated changes awaiting the community. Each of these leaders are a true representation that anybody is possible, anything is possible when you grow up in Milwaukee and attend MPS and believe in yourself. The Milwaukee Board of School Directors recognizes and honors David Crowley, Cavalier Johnson, Arcelia Nicholson, Jeffrey, Norman, Jose Perez for their dedication, outstanding leadership, and academic excellence. Will the superintendent please do the honors? Marcelia Nicholson, would you care to make any comments?
Thank you, President Peterson, members of the board, Superintendent Posley, listening public. I'm Marcelia Nicholson. I'm chairwoman of the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors. This is incredibly humbling and really an honor. And I think many people know of me and my love for public service. I don't do this work for credit, but it is nice to be recognized. But I wouldn't be here if not for Milwaukee Public Schools, I have to say, as a product of MPS, Benjamin Franklin, Samuel Morse School of Gifted and Talented, and Milwaukee School of Languages, and also as a former fourth grade teacher at Milwaukee Public Schools. It really was the teachers, the students, the families, the community that surrounded our schools that allowed someone like me who grew up in the poor zip code in the state to become who I am today. And if I didn't say one thing before I leave, it's that the public school system is a cornerstone of our democracy. It pours into children that have been so underserved and oppressed, and we really need to support and protect them as much as possible. So thank you for this honor, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you to make sure we can make this a reality for every student here in Milwaukee. Thank you so much.
Police Chief, Mr. Norman.
Members of the board, Dr. Posley, just like to extend my appreciation for this honor. I know that this is something of coming around for a young guy coming from Milwaukee, born and raised in Milwaukee, having that history of understanding the challenges of our city and how MPS fits into helping support, guide, feed, teach our young ones. I definitely appreciate you all. As a former student of Green Bay Avenue School, Maryland Avenue School, and a proud graduate of Blue Devil of North Division High School, I show to all those in our Milwaukee community, we can make a difference. And just as my my colleague said in regards to understanding what that lift looks like, I fully support the work of what MPS does. I appreciate the good working relationship with Dr. Posley, and understand that we have to do this together. The work in our community is not for only one organization or one person. It's all of us. We all have a responsibility to nurture, support, and guide our children. So thank you all, especially that you spell my name right. Too often I get either G-E-O or J-E-F-F-E-R-Y. I can see that I'm in good hands here, that my name is spelled right, so I definitely appreciate that also. God bless you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will add that we invited, obviously, County Executive David Crowley and Mayor Cavalier Johnson and Common Council President Jose Perez, but they were unable to make it for different reasons. But our congratulations go out to them as well. Could we have another round of applause for everyone who's... Thank you. Madam Secretary? Well, you know, do any board members have anything they want to say? I'll back up. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, have a seat for that.
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you, President Peterson. Just want to extend my deep gratitude for the work that each of you do and the other people who were recognized this evening, and to hear of those deep roots in Milwaukee. You know, as a fellow Milwaukeean, MPS graduate, teacher, and now continuing this work, that it really shows the kind of service and dedication it takes for all of us to work together for the benefit of our communities and the children who live here. So just thank you so much for the work that you each do.
Yes, Director Taylor.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you to all of you. I believe most of you are from 53206, myself as well. So when we talk about that zip code, we should understand that there are great individuals that come from there as well too. And even though we didn't see everybody on the stage tonight for different reasons, when I look at it, we see a majority of people in leadership in Milwaukee. And so for us Milwaukeeans, that speaks a great length of where we at and where we're going. So just keep up the good work. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll just make one. I second what everybody has said thus far. Reading the lists every month of people who have died, though, and we see the children who have, for various reasons, died many times for no reason whatsoever. We know that we have a crisis in our community when we see that kind of violence, and you know, our children deserve better, and I know we're all working hard. It's not just the schools, it's not just any institution, it's all of us together. So let's continue and do what's right for kids. Thank you. Okay, one more round of applause now. Really, yeah. Madam Secretary, what's the next item of business?
The next item is action on the minutes of the May 2022 special and regular meetings of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
Do any members of the board have corrections for the minutes of May 2022? There being no corrections, the minutes are approved as presented.
So noted.
Okay. Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the superintendent?
Yes, Mr. President, we do have two communications from the superintendent. And the first is the monthly report with possible action from the superintendent of schools. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the superintendent please give this report?
Yes, good evening, President Peterson and members of the board. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. June is the time of the year where we reflect on how the year went, as well as plan for what is on the horizon. During this reflection, it brings to mind all of the amazing accomplishments that make us MPS proud, such as $107 million in scholarships that was awarded. The senior send-off acknowledging the students and graduates in the spring, and the preparation for the summer graduation in July. I would like to recognize some of the opportunities for our students and families, such as Summer Academy, recreational activities, enrichment programs, as well as our summer meals program. For the rest of my report this month, I ask that you join me in a visual representation with a video that has been prepared to highlight the amazing school year we had. Begin the presentation.
Close your eyes with me, start imagining a world full of love. We can change the stars with our hands and hearts, make them shine on us. But no, no, don't worry, darling, they won't stop staring, but soon they'll be caring. Come from near and far with their hands and hearts, 'cause it's time to stand up. Oh, the world is changing, and all I'm saying is we gotta believe. I'm a drop of water, but you know together we're the ocean deep. The time is always right to open up your eyes and be the flickering flame. We can light the corners, shine through all the borders. Deep down we are the same. But no, no, don't worry, darling, they won't stop staring, but soon they'll be caring. Oh, the world is changing, and all I'm saying is we gotta believe.
I want to acknowledge that none of these accomplishments and opportunities would not have been possible without all of our amazing staff in the Milwaukee Public School. You truly make all of us MPS proud. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Yes.
Thank
Go
you
Howard.
so much for that video. I was laughing because I'm an easy crier, and at the end, it was kind of, my feelings were coming out of my eyes a little bit. But thank you so much, and I hope we can share that video, social media, and et cetera, so that people can see all this amazing work, because it's really nice to see it all packaged in one. It really is a great reminder of the many great things that are happening throughout the year. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
I think that feeling's universal, so thank you. And thank everybody in the district, as Dr. Posley has mentioned. Okay. What's the next communication from the superintendent?
The next communication is action on a request to authorize funding for hazard pay. The recommendation is that the board authorize $150,000 for hazard pay stipends for eligible staff who did not receive hazard pay previously and were centrally mandated to work on-site with the public between March 18, 2020 and May 20th, 2020, not to exceed $150,000 in stipends.
Will the superintendent please present this item?
President Peterson and members of the board, Milwaukee Public Schools buildings were closed due to the pandemic starting March 16th of 2020. At that time, staff and students were sent home. However, some staff were centrally mandated to work on-site with the public to keep district operations functioning. Some examples of mandated work included stop, grab, and go sites to provide meals for families, student academic material deliveries, and Chromebook distributions. Many staff already received hazard pay for work with the public during the spring of 2020, while other staff were at home. However, there are staff that have not been recognized. This item recommends that the board authorize $150,000 for hazard pay stipends for eligible staff who previously did not receive hazard pay and were centrally mandated to work on site with the public between March 18th and May 20th of 2020. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Adrian Maddalini to kind of walk through some of the optics of our plan. Adrian.
Thank you, Dr. Posley. President Peterson, members of the board, Adrian Maddalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. To start off, I would like to provide some history with regard to hazard pay during the pandemic. During the pandemic, some employee groups already received hazard pay. Specifically, those groups were food service assistants, safety assistants, engineers, and secretaries. In tonight's item, the administration is recommending that the board authorize money for hazard pay stipends for eligible employees that did not receive hazard pay previously. 12-month central office staff, school-based principals, and school-based assistant principals are examples of those employee groups that would qualify for the hazard pay stipend. Employees in these groups would be eligible for the stipend if they meet the following criteria. One, they were requested to come in to work in person to perform specific tasks with the public. And two, they perform those tasks on site for at least 20 days between the period of March 18th through May 20th of 2020. At this time, we estimate roughly 300 employees would receive the stipend. We anticipate paying out the stipends in the fall after the start of the new work year to ensure that all staff are back and we can communicate with them. And then upon approval from the board, the administration will inform eligible employee groups via email regarding the stipend and outline a process for how they can receive that payment. And that's just a brief summary of how we plan on logistically moving forward with this item. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Any questions by the board members? Yes, Director Herndon?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the recommendation of administration to authorize the hazard pay stipends for eligible staff who did not receive hazard pay previously.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion? Okay, Director Taylor seconds. Any other conversation? Yes, and sorry,
That's okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, President Peterson. I did have a question about the IT service technicians, and are they included in this group, or have they been included in a previous group?
administration.
President Peterson, Director Seamson, members of the board, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. The IT service workers were not included previously, but as they are 12-month central office staff, they would be eligible under this provision.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to make sure that happened.
Thank you, Director Seamson. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
On Director Herndon's motion, seconded by Vice President Taylor, on a request to authorize $150,000 in funding for hazard pay. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Vice President Taylor.
Aye.
And President Peterson.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Office of Board Governance?
Yes, Mr. President, we do have 2 communications. We have our legislative update, which is attached to this item, and this is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Okay, so that has been attached. Are there any comments by the board? We do not have to take action. Okay. Would the Office of Board Governments present the next report?
The next report is a communication from the Office of Board Governance, and this is action on a resolution and participation agreement with the Southeastern Wisconsin Schools Alliance, the SWSA. The recommendation is that the board, 1, authorize the resolution as attached to this item, and 2, authorize the board's president and board clerk to sign and to submit the attached participation agreement along with the $3,200 membership fee to the Southeastern Wisconsin Schools Alliance.
Would the Office of Board Governance please present this item?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, this is an annual expense that the board takes on to support the partnership with the Southeastern Alliance for school districts, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Do board members have any questions or comments? Director O'Halloran.
I move that we adopt the Office of Board Governance recommendation to adopt the resolution and authorize the board's president and board clerk to sign and submit the attached participation agreement along with the $3,200.
Director Garcia.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director O'Halloran's motion is read into the record, seconded by Director Garcia, which moves approval of the recommendation. Director Carr?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Seamson?
Aye.
Vice President Taylor? Aye. And President Peterson?
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency?
Yes, Mr. President, we do have 1 communication, and that is the monthly report with possible action on the activities within the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the Office of Accountability and Efficiency please present the report?
Thank you, Chair Peterson. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. That report is before you. Additionally, as we have presented previously in June, is our annual work plan for the subsequent year. And what you see attached is fiscal year 23, our annual work plan. In it, you'll find the targets that we have set for each of our service areas in terms of outputs and outcomes. Fiscal year '23 actually represents year 4 of our 10-year strategic plan, continuing to use the tool sets of data analytics to improve the district's fiscal transparency. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does the board wish to make any comments or ask any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Madam Secretary, what is the next item of business?
The next item is action on the reports of the independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors, student expulsions.
The chair will entertain a motion to accept, modify, or reject the reports of the independent hearing officers of the dates and times listed in our agenda. Do I have a motion? Dr. Taylor? Do I have a second to that motion? Dr. Garcia? Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Secretary, please call the roll.
On Vice President Taylor's motion, seconded by Director Garcia, to accept the reports of the independent hearing officers. On the motion is read into the record. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Vice President Taylor. And President Peterson.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
We'll now have the reports of the standing committees. Since public hearing was given at the committee meetings, the board, as is customary, will not be given public hearing on these reports this evening. Madam Secretary, what is the first report?
The first report is that of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. This report, item number 2, action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases and decreases, and the limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days, has been set aside at the request of the administration.
Do any board members wish any items to be set aside from this committee? Seeing none, we'll move on. Madam Secretary, what's the next report?
The next report is that of legislation, rules, and policies. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish any items from this committee to be set aside? Director O'Halloran.
Item 2.
Item 2. Any other items? Okay. Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the Committee on Parent and Community Engagement. No items of this report have been set aside.
Do any board members wish any items from this committee be set aside? Seeing none, we'll move on. Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. Item 5, report on Resolution 2122R-4 and action on the recommendations of the Middle School and High School Steering Committee has been set aside at the request of Director Leonard.
Do any board members wish any other items to be set aside? Seeing none, we'll move on. And the way we move on is I'll ask for a motion for the balance of the reports of the standing committees. Director Seamson.
I move approval of the balance of the standing reports from the committees.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Director Taylor has seconded it. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
On Director Seamson's motion, seconded by Vice President Taylor, to approve the balance of the reports outside of the items that have been set aside of the standing committees. On the motion is read. Director Carr?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Seamson?
Aye.
Vice President Taylor? And President Peterson?
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, what is the next item?
Mr. President, we are now back to the items that were set aside. The first item that was set aside was from the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel, item number 2, which is action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases and decreases, and the limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days. The recommendation is that the board authorize the promotions, reassignments, and salary increases and decreases, and the appointments to the classifications indicated in the attachments to this item to be effective as indicated in the attachment.
And this was set aside by the request of the administration, correct?
That is correct.
And so I will call on the administration to speak to us.
Thank you. President Peterson, members of the board, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. The reason why we set it aside is we had some last-minute additions, some names we wanted to add. So that's why we're bringing it forward and asking for your approval of the amended administrative appointment list. As you know, time is of the essence, so we try to get as many people as we can in a month, and especially now and in July, right before the start of school year, we try to get as many school-based staff in as possible.
Do any members of the board have comments in this matter? Could I get a motion to approve this? Yes, Dr. Leonard.
I move that we approve the administration's changes to the item, sorry.
No worries.
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Gogolgandhi?
Yep, second.
Okay. Do any members have any other comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, would you please take the roll?
On Director Leonard's motion, seconded by Director Gokul Gandhi, to approve the administrative appointment item, item number 2 from the Accountability, Finance, and Personnel Committee, moving approval of the item, including the updated attachment relative to the administrative appointments. On the motion as read into the record, Director Carr?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
Vice President Taylor? And President Peterson.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
What is the next item that's set aside?
The next item that was set aside was from the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies, item number 2. And that is action on adoption of a proposed procedure on time schedules and workload. The recommendation of the committee was that the board approve the attached administrative procedure 6.27.
And I believe Dr. O'Halloran set it aside, so please speak to us.
Yes, thank you. I'm not really interested in holding it up from advancing. I'm happy to go with committee's recommendation. I did want to note that we did get a piece of testimony concerning like K-8s and just some concerns around like the middle school years. And so I was just wondering what the process would be if this needed, if there were interest in just bringing other concerns, just how someone would go about that, because I I literally got this like 14 minutes ago, so I haven't had adequate time to review. So it was rather late, but I was hoping that if there were, changes that were needed, what would be the right process to raise those concerns, I guess, at this point.
Could you give us give me a little more information about the actual motion that you're referring to?
I believe this was in regards to the time, like I literally got this. It was for Administrative Procedure 627. They said the proposed policy does not touch K-8 teachers in 6th through 8th grade, blah, blah, blah. So like, I'm not trying to belittle the comments with a blah, blah, blah. I just at this point,
Okay, got it.
does that make sense now?
Administration.
Thank you, President Peterson, Director O'Halloran, members of the board, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. Yes, we may have not captured everyone in particular, every specific instance and scenario. I know we have K through 12 schools, we got K-8s, we have, so if there ever is a situation, we do a lot of meet and confer with our unions, and if there's any concerns, we can address them. Some of them, if they're procedurally, that won't impact this actual procedure, we can implement right away. But if there's a concern that we need, that this procedure needs to specifically call out something, we would be happy to bring forward at another meeting a revised version of this procedure for you to consider.
Director O'Halloran?
Thank you. With that, I really have no concerns or objections.
So we could use a motion to approve this, I believe. Director O'Halloran?
Since I opened my mouth. I would be pleased to make a motion to accept the recommendation on this item.
Thank you. A second? Director Gokul Gandhi? Okay, she seconds. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director O'Halloran's motion, seconded by Director Gokul Gandhi, to approve item number 2 from the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies, action on adoption of a proposed procedure on time schedules and workload. Moving approval of the recommendation of the committee, which is to approve the attached administrative procedure 6.27. On the motion is read into the record. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Vice President Taylor. And President Peterson.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
What is the next item set aside?
The next item that is set aside is from the report of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. That's item number 5, report on Resolution 2122R-4 and action on recommendations of the Middle School and High School Steering Committee. The recommendation is that the board adopt the recommendations as presented in the first attachment to this item for implementation during the 22-23 school year. This item was set aside by Director Leonard.
Thank you. Director Leonard?
Okay, so initially, I wanted to set this aside because Director Garcia at the SASE meeting had asked some questions, and I did not feel satisfied by the responses. It seemed that it was just not very clear, not well defined. Then I received a significant number of calls and letters from both staff members and parents from several of the schools that are in the district, so I wanted to bring that up. And I really sort of just have 3 basic concerns. So my first concern is that that we develop a well-defined process for a school to request to become a select criteria school, and that there would be accompanying evaluative measures of such consideration. Number 2, that there would be a well-defined monitoring and review mechanism for select criteria schools. And then the last one is that we need a timeline when this will be presented to the board. We need something solid. I feel like we're making decisions on something that I think we should make on. I'm all for this, but I feel like it's just not well-defined, well put in place. I want to make sure that when we get done with this, that schools that want to move into this process know clearly what they have to do.
Administration?
Good evening, Director Peterson, Director Leonard, members of the committee, Melanie Stewart, Director of Research Assessment and Data. Those schools that it's not necessary that a school go through a process to be select criteria, but those schools who have more requests for seats than seats available would be able to go into that process. So for example, if you had a school and they had 300 seats available for the following school year, and they had through the application process 400 students, they would automatically be put into the select criteria process. Internally, we do the gathering of data on every Milwaukee Public School student, their essays, their grades, their state assessments, their attendance procedures, all of that. That data we actually will begin collecting, and we will have that available should the need arise. So we could, in the fall, because we're going to be hopefully advertising all schools much more, that if we had 3 schools that had more interest in than there were seats available, then those 3 schools would be part of the select criteria process. So I think what we talked about is that originally in the 1990s is how select criteria came about. So it's a process of availability of seats there. So the monitoring and reviewing, we'd be glad to do that. I think that is part of this and part of the recommendations that we come back to you after the process unfolds this year. By the way, I'd like to thank Matthew Boswell, who we've been working together on this throughout the entire process, is that as we go through the process, we are constantly doing formative types of assessments, but we will come back to you to report out, does the new criteria, were we able to add more students? How successful was that? How many concerns were raised by this? And we will lay that out for you after the process is completed. The timeline is as soon as this is approved this evening, Mr. Boswell and I will call a meeting to start enacting all of these action steps that are in place. So I hope that answered your questions, Director Leonard.
Director Leonard.
Sort of, yeah. I guess I want clarification. So you look, the criteria that you have set, that you actually have given us a list of things that you look at, that's already figured out well before the amount of seats are figured out. And I think that's all well and good. So it really comes down to attendance. It comes down to if there's 400 more students that want to go to that school, that would put them in a select criteria process automatically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess I still feel like that's like, for me, I'm looking at what are all the things that I would want to make sure, if I were an administrator and a team at that school, to make sure that these students were coming into our building really prepared to be in that building. Just because they selected to be at that school, is that the only judgment on whether or not they would be allowed to go into a select criteria school? And I think some of the parents are bringing this back to me. Some parents are asking me, so what if I send my child there and I don't know why they're really there after a while and they can't fit into that school? I feel like I've wasted my effort in putting them into a select criteria school. And that is a concern that some parents have brought up to me. I don't know if I'm making myself really clear on that. Everything else is answered. I do want a monitoring process. I just still feel there's just something lacking, and I can't put my finger on it at this actual moment. But if anybody else has input, please feel free.
Administration, you wish to comment?
Yes.
Please.
President Peterson, members of the board, Matthew Boswell, Senior Director of the Department of Student Services. Yes, as Dr. Stewart stated, in terms of that process, so take, for instance, a King and a Reagan. In terms of the criteria that she laid out in terms of state testing, attendance, report cards, essays, what have you. Once that process is completed, let's say, for instance, you have 400 kids interested in Reagan. So Reagan will look at those those students that show interest in their school, and they set a cut score. So there's a process where the principal, members of our special education team, members of student services department, get together with the school, and the school principal, along with the administration, determines their number of seats available. And once those number of seats available, once those number of seats are available, are taken, that's where the cut score falls. A percentage of that number of those seats are given to special education students, so on and so forth. So in terms of those criterias, that is the criteria for that aligned school. I think, Director Leonard, what you are asking, and I just want to be clear in terms of the work that Dr. Miller and I have to go back and accomplish, is to setting a standard to each and every select criteria school, which there is a baseline standard created. But I think you're talking about for schools that are looking to come in to that fold. I just want to be clear in terms of the clarity of the task at hand.
And yes, you did. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Okay.
Any other comments? Yes, Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I did have a constituent reach out to me about the process by which a school would become a select criteria. So what I'm hearing is, say they go through this year, they have X amount of seats. If they have anybody on a waiting list, that would place them into the select criteria. Then it would be, for this year, they would be considered select criteria. Like, I don't know if that they were asking us to get a clearly defined process to be added to this group. So I don't know if that's adequate for their, given, I mean, it seems very clear to me, but I don't know if that would suffice for the person that was reaching out to me. In particular, they were just saying, they have a kind of one of those hidden gem high schools that you don't hear about too much, but they really are strong advocates, and I've only ever heard fantastic things about it, but I think the appearance is, by not being considered currently a select criteria, they aren't considered as kind of one of those premier high schools that everyone should be seeking out. So I think while it makes sense to me, this process, I don't know if that would adequately suffice for the person that had reached out to me, so I'm just putting that out there.
Director Peterson, Director O'Halloran, members of the committee, Melanie Stewart, Director of Research Assessment and Data. Absolutely. And part of the recommendations of the committee were how can we, and if you look through the different bullets under our recommendation, there is working with the schools to better advertise themselves. That's why we want to move to, it's not just select criteria at the beginning of the year, it is all MPS high schools. We have many hidden gem programs throughout the entire district. Therefore, we believe, and through the committee's work reinforced, we need to make certain that every high school is bringing forth their best all at the same time, increasing the number of open houses so people have opportunity, having visual walkthroughs, et cetera, so that we are showcasing all of our high schools and what they offer students, so that we are presenting not early admissions for 5 schools, but we are doing admissions for all of our schools and helping them best showcase what they have. We hope that there are more schools that are getting in more requests for students and bringing students back from other schools that have been away from MPS to bring them back into the fold because of the programs that we have available for these children.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Director Garcia.
Yes, thank you for that information, and thank you, Director Leonard, for jogging our memory in regards to what happened in conversations in the SASE meeting. But for the listening audience, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that a lot of this strategy, and I commend, the team that has been working on this, is really as a way to help, make schools that have been seen as a higher tier because of the optics, because of design, of how can we really deconstruct that and really make it a way where all of our schools are being showcased in the way of, what they offer the community and our students. So thank you for that. I think that's really, really important. I think what the questions are from a policy and systematizing this is making sure that we are adequately planning for the increase as we're looking to more widely, or I don't know what the correct word is, but to distribute our special ed population. I think that our goal was to have at least 20% in schools. When we look at the report for these specific self-select schools, that in many cases that would be doubling the amount of special ed students that are currently being serviced. So I think it would be worthwhile just to hear about support of how are we supporting the schools that are not yet serving that amount of students, and that how are we prepping to receive the increased amount of special ed students. And then secondly, and I think you touched on this, Director Leonard, is how can we make sure that the process for schools that want to become, with the tag of whatever we're calling this, what is it, select criteria schools, to really know what those steps are. I know that during the SASE meeting, we had testimony for one specific school that currently has, I believe, more than 40% special ed students and has really good test scores and doing really, really great things. But they were not on the criteria select grouping. So just going back to that idea that I think we're doing great in breaking down those optics as to having higher and lower tier schools. I think that we're definitely taking the correct steps, and I commend again the team for making those strides. We just have to make sure to put attention to detail as we roll this out.
Thank you. Administration, would you care to make any comment?
Director Peterson, Director Garcia, Melanie Stewart, Director of Research, Assessment and Data, absolutely. As you looked at the data, one of the things that the committee saw is the amount of applications that some of those schools took every special ed student that applied to those schools, and literally every single student. In the processes we are outlining it, we are more focused to make certain that all of those schools meet that threshold. And so that is important. We also look, and we will work with the Department of Specialized Services, because some schools do have specialized programs. And because of specialized programs, there might be some slight fluctuations, but the intent is to have the more even distribution across all of these schools. So thank you, and again, you're very accurate. We want to showcase all schools so that we are certain that those schools are, again, that have programs and may not, there are hidden gems, become not hidden.
Thank you. Any other comment from the board? Seeing none, we need a motion to move this item forward. Director Gokul Gandhi.
I move that we adopt the report on resolution 2122R-004 and adopt the action on recommendations of middle school and high school steering committee as presented by the administration.
Okay, is there a second? Director O'Halloran. Okay, we have it.
I second.
Nice and loud, thank you. Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Gokul Gandhi's motion is read into the record to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the resolution 2122R-4, seconded by Director O'Halloran. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Vice President Taylor. And President Peterson.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, are there any items of regular business?
Yes, Mr. President, we do have 2 items of regular business. The first one is the report of the board's delegate. The first report is that of the board's delegate to the library board.
Director Simpson.
Thank you very much. That report is before you, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to talk with you.
Okay, Madam Secretary, what's the next report?
The next report is the report of the board's delegate to CISA 1.
Director Herndon.
The report is before you. If you have any questions, please reach out to me.
Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the board's delegate to the District Advisory Council, the DAC.
Thank you. That report is before you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Just a
Madam Secretary, what's the next item?
Mr. Chair, before we move on to the next item, Director Gokagandi has a comment.
Oh, Director Kulkarni, sorry.
Just a point of information, the Head Start report is listed twice, so for the listening audience, if you're looking for the library report, I think OBG will correct that.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Secretary, what's the next item of regular business?
The next report is that of the board's delegate to the Head Start Policy Council.
Thank you, Director Gokagandi. I'm here clicking, looking like, where's the report? So thank you for making me feel like I am not going crazy. And the Head Start Policy Council report is before you. Happy to talk to anyone afterwards about questions you may have.
Madam Secretary, what is the next item of regular business?
Mr. President, just for the record, Director Seamson, as delegate to the library board, we do have that report, and we will make sure that it is visible for the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next report is that of the president of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
And that is before you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Madam Secretary, are there any items of unfinished business?
Mr. President, we have no items of unfinished business.
Madam Secretary, are there any items of new business for referral to committee?
We have no new items for new business for referral,
Madam Secretary, are there any communications for referral to committee?
and we have no communications this month either.
Madam Secretary, are there any resolutions for referral to committee?
Yes, Mr. President, we have 3 resolutions for referral. The first resolution is Resolution 2223R-5 by Director Herndon on the designation of River Trail School as a school of agriculture.
Okay, and this will be referred to the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. What is the next resolution?
The next resolution is Resolution 2223R-6 by Director Carr on the MPS School Safety Assessment.
This will be referred to the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. What is the next resolution?
The next resolution is Resolution 2223R-7 by Directors Peterson and Herndon on climate justice targets.
This will be referred to the Committee on Strategic Planning and Budget. Are there any other resolutions for referral, Madam Secretary?
Mr. President, that completes the list of resolutions.
Madam Secretary, what's the next item, please?
Mr. President, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
There being no further business before the board and noticing how early it is in the night, please, well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.